Well, friends, we are back again for another week of the Pastards. Believe it or not, we were here last week, but we didn't have sound, which I think we remedied today. We'll know in just a minute when your wife chats with us and says sound, yay, or I can't hear anything.
Right.
Other than that, things going really well.
Our technology battle is legendary.
Well, I did think that we could hit some of the stuff that we hit last week because it was so good. We don't have to hit all of it, obviously, but
You're going to really try and redo last week.
Sorry,
Well,
that was my thought.
What hadn't happened last week was Scotty Scheffler.
He won the world. The world of golf. $25 million payout.
So have you seen some of that?
Won 7 times this year. Gold medal in the Olympics. The next closest person to ever do that was Tiger Woods.
Tiger.
That's ridiculous.
Well,
his 3-year run is ridiculous right now. Now, again, it's not a 20-year run.
but here's fun factoid.
I love Roger's factoids.
Well, then I get to throw out a trivia question at you. So,
one question: did you watch Sunday's round?
No.
Because I did. I was building a website for the Greece and Turkey tour that's coming up next year. While I was also, I just shameless plugs. While I was watching Scotty Scheffler destroy the world. All right, back.
So this year he won. You know how much he made for the year?
He broke the record. I don't know what he won. It's
okay, $62 million.
That's just in prize money. $62 million.
Right, yeah, that's just prize money. So $62 million. So people have had fun with different factoids around that. But
Arnold Palmer, I think, maxed out in his best year at 62,000.
So how many players have made more than $62 million in their career? Guess the number.
23.
7.
Really? 7 people?
Oh, read this.
Oh, no, that's shocking.
Only 7 people, one of whom is Tiger. And I'm assuming with this, like, they're not like doing like LIV bonuses or
right.
But
because that's not prize money.
Right, actual prize money. So earnings. Now it's a fascinating list of 7 players.
I gotta know.
A couple. Well, I'm just curious if you were to guess.
Well, Jack Nicklaus was too old, so he probably didn't.
No old people.
Yeah.
No, really. Yeah, no.
Yeah. So, what's his name?
Tiger,
but no, I already got that one. No, the big guy that's won like 5 majors now. Plays on the Live Tour, which is not even real.
He's probably not on there.
Okay. He's not on there. Well, why don't you just tell us who is on there, Rod?
Spieth, McIlroy.
Jordan Spieth. These are all, this
right.
No, McIlroy's been around for a while.
Intriguingly, Justin Rose, Vijay
Singh. That was the only old guy.
Right. He's the only, maybe he crossed over enough into the modern.
Yeah. But he was also one of the few people that has ever won 6 times in a year.
Okay.
So he was on that. That was like a list of 5 people.
Right.
Tiger Woods, like Tom Watson, Jack Nicklaus, Vijay Singh.
Right.
Who wins 6 times in a year. Now Scotty Scheffler.
7 players, only 7 players have made more than $62 million in their career.
He had a career year, as it turns out.
And then I guess the other thing was fun was just what he made averages out to $12,000 per shot.
Can you imagine if
every time you were over a club,
would be multimillionaires. I mean, if we got paid,
I would be richer than you.
You would be far more wealthy than I would. No, what was so funny about the Tour Championship, because I was trying to explain it to Marlena because she hates golf, but I said, "Hon, this is what you have to love about the Tour Championship. The person who comes in dead last today, I mean, they go out and shoot 103. It doesn't matter. They're going to get over $500,000 to lose. It's just hilarious. $500,000. Second place was $12.5 million.
Yep.
Third place, I think, $10 million. I mean, it's just nuts. When the Tour Championship started, I think just 18 years ago, you won $10 million bonus. When you won Now it's 25 million. I'm like, what?
Right.
Does money just grow on trees? PGA Tour has just giant money trees. They just go pluck off of. And it's becoming, in my mind, like the NFL in terms of a money making
Yep.
thing.
They've
It's just
streamlined the
huge.
thing, and
Well, and with the live thing, you thought purses would go down. You're losing all these players, but it's fascinating.
yep, no, it is.
Good times. Yeah, I played golf twice this year, Raj. Once in Florida. You were with us on that one, right? Were you? I can't remember. Yeah, because you found your game. I remember it now. Yeah, you played with us. And
then you played the second. You played maybe one more time. I didn't play the second time.
Yeah, I played with Zach on his birthday.
Okay. You and golf kind of parting ways?
I don't have time, frankly. So, I mean, even like Labor Day weekend, I spent 23 hours on one of 3 different John Deeres. So, like 21.
You have 3 different John Deeres?
Yeah. So 21 and a half hours I was on the big John Deere bush hogging, just nonstop, cleared like 30 acres. Then I spent like a half hour on the riding. I call it little now. It used to be big to me. The riding lawnmower John Deere, doing all around the house and all that stuff. And then I used the 0-turn John Deere to do the huge section around the barns, Zach and Carly's house, the cove, all of that.
You have 3 Deeres.
I have 3 Deeres. I literally took showers 3 times a day for the last 3 days. Because every time you come in to eat, or you're just covered in dust, and I've been doing nasal rinses twice a day, and terrible stuff comes out of it.
Farm living is the life for me.
Well, it is fun, and tractor therapy is. So I don't even put like headphones on and listen to music. I just think. And some of it's funny. I mean, I think of funny things, like all of these skits that I want to do for Ranger Rick. You'll hear more about that on the Born to Be Wild website. But all these different skits come to my mind about, oh, we could do this for that and funny stuff.
We should just start calling this the Born to Be Wild podcast.
Ideas for our podcast, which I talked to you a little bit about earlier today. Big news that we'll share later when we decide. That was kind of, here's what we should. Wait till the end of this video for the big reveal.
Okay.
If you watch all the way to the end, there's going to be a big reveal.
And all you potential sponsors are going to want to stay with us, because this could be your chance.
Doggone it. You know who should be a sponsor for us? John Dadgum Deere. Because I am wearing out the John Deeres right now.
I would like Scotty Scheffler to sponsor us.
He's a good kid. Just give us 1%. What's 1% of 62 million? 620,000? I would take that.
We could improve.
We could improve. We could actually be working out of a studio instead of a 1977 house office. As much as with
I like the vibe of this office.
With a faux fireplace on that side.
We really want us to be down home people. Back to the 70s.
Yeah, I don't. And why do people, when they do podcasts? I'm sorry, I just don't get it. But they put the headphones on. It looks really cool. But what is it actually doing?
What?
I don't understand.
Or
I do know one thing it's doing. You know if you have sound or not. Dang it! That is exactly why they do
Everyone's just laughing at us right now.
So why you use headphones is, if you're not getting sound, you'll know immediately because you're.
And then you can just turn it off and restart with sound.
That's brilliant. Next week, I'm breaking out the headphones, Raj.
I love it.
I'm going to do it. It's going to be great.
But we don't have to have a studio. There's nothing. We don't have to have a fancy schmancy.
I think I've got some headphones in here. I think I got some plugins.
Why wait? We tell you this is unscripted, and here we are. We have no idea what we're doing.
So last week, we had a great talk on generosity, which I wanted to revisit today because I had some insight. Roger had some great insights, which he always does.
Oh, my goodness, yes. I'm going to turn the sound down on my phone just because last week it rang, I think.
It rang during the middle of the podcast?
Yeah, here we go.
All right, there you go, Raj. Now I'm a podcaster.
All right. I'm feeling official, except
What's that? I can't hear you.
I don't.
I have no idea what you just said. Do I look more podcasty?
It's definitely, you look more something.
Okay.
More something you.
A little something you ought to
Never look like again.
Shout out to Hitch, which is one of my favorite movies of all time. No, I'd had this thought. This was previous to the tractoring and previous to the COVID that apparently I got, and now Marlena has, and others will get as we go along. I mean, it was like the worst 2 days of my life. It was awful.
You were a carrier?
Well, thanks to Mark, thanks to Jude. Okay, so it's just I'm in the down line, or it's like a pyramid scheme. I'm in the down line, and the down line keeps growing. So
thankfully I did not get in on that pyramid.
No, I was a little concerned for you because it's a bad pyramid. I've still got a lot of and I'll have a cough for the next 10 weeks. That's what always happens in the fall. We can't see you, Roger. Okay? Everybody was. I'm not contagious anymore. I was contagious for maybe 2 days.
Just having a spot of fun.
Spot of fun, is it? Well,
what about generosity? Would you like to talk about?
So this is what I thought. I thought, and it might actually happen. You know.
Oh, no. We can't keep going this way.
No,
we've got to stop.
We all do. We can't stop it now. You cannot stop it. Once you start it, you can't stop it. So I thought to myself, I said, I would rather die a pauper, but be generous, than to die a wealthy man and be stingy. And actually, I think I flipped it. I think I would rather die a pauper. Yes, anyway, I would rather be generous and die a pauper than to be stingy and die wealthy.
Because you'd rather be happy.
because I'd rather be happy. And I was thinking about this whole thing of how generosity saves. Well, yeah, and you shared more about how generosity saves us, which I want you to go into. But the thought that I hadn't had before was when Jesus says about giving. So Jesus didn't say give 10%. I don't teach people to give 10%. I'm like, that was an Old Testament thing, and it was something you had to do. In other words, it didn't have to come from your heart at all. It's just purely, this is the law. You give 10% and it takes care of. So it's basically tax.
Right. But what it always struck me as the tithe idea was almost like what you do with kids. You're just teaching them a principle. In other words, just
and wasn't that ultimately what the law was?
Exactly. Right. It's just an idea. It's a revelation of things that are important and value that you need to build in your life. So if you think about the idea that 10% was this mandated for your life, this was teaching you how to give. It was just a simple way. This is why even a child can understand a dime out of a dollar.
Yep. And it creates a rhythm. And then ultimately it begins to shape a heart. Because
that's what you want it to happen. Right?
Because I want to be teaching on this weekend. Turns out I got asked to speak at the Net Sunday.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I think Rob may have gotten COVID. I don't know, but either way, they want to me to do the talk that I've done several places on investing.
You gave him COVID, so you could get a speaking engagement.
I would never do that. But it's that talk I do on investing in futures. But when I talk about tithing in the Old Testament, I'm like, that's not even what we think tithing is. We thought it was tithing off of income because that's the way that we get it. Hi, Joy. Thank you. Okay. Awesome. Because we tithe on income. So if I make, $50,000, I'm going to give $5,000. They didn't tithe on income in the Old Testament. They tithed on net worth year after year after year. So if you got 500, let's say you got 500 sheep. All right.
Yep.
And those sheep produced 50 more sheep this year. In our way of thinking, we would give back to God 5 of the 50 sheep. No. You're going to give 55 sheep because you now have 550 sheep. They were tithing off net worth. And I remember the first time I taught this at one church years ago, it was mind blowing to people. And I want to say this carefully, but a person gave to the church like the following week over $200,000 because they wanted to give off of their net worth. Because I told them it's not law.
Right.
So, but I thought, oh my gosh, what? Because if we tithe, If all of us tithed off net worth in America, we could fund every charitable institution in America full 100%. But the thing about this is the thing that I believe demanded so much trust, and why tithing creates a sense of trust. Again, I'm talking about the Old Testament command. Let's say you got 550 sheep. You're going to give 55 back to God. Well, now it seems like you lost because you're 5 sheep less than you had last year, because you had 500 sheep last year. Now you're down to 495. They had to trust that God could give them 50, 60, 70 sheep the next year. It just created this. In other words, I don't think any of them became less wealthy because they were tithing. I think God blessed that in a unique way. But ultimately, you said it best. Tithing is the idea of, like you would teach a child. We want to put a principle in place that hopefully establishes a rhythm for your life, that then puts your heart in a certain space. Because Jesus said in all of his teaching about giving, didn't teach tithing. In fact, he talked about how the Pharisees would like strain out a gnat and swallow a camel. He said, "You guys are so careful tithing. You'll give 10% of your cumin and your dill seed and your mint and your spices and all that, but you neglect the much larger matters of justice and mercy and all that kind of stuff." But he said, "Where your treasure is, there will your heart be also." So he would say, and I think with a big smile on his face, and I would love to see his hand motion, store up treasure in heaven. Like, just give it away. Just store up treasure in heaven. Because moth and rust, thieves won't break in and steal, and moth and rust won't destroy. Because where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. And when we give, it's putting our heart in a different place. Because ultimately, I am largely selfish. And I want to take care of me. And I want to make sure I've got enough for me. But when I help someone else, when I give, it's getting me out of that. And it's actually forming the heart of God in me. Because God is generous. There's an entire book on that called The Prodigal God.
The tension I'm feeling listening to what you say is giving doesn't always change people's hearts.
Ooh, and talk about that.
Well, so here's where, so what's the thing that, like for the Pharisees who were giving religiously, so there's something about, it's supposed to do something in our heart that's about compassion, generosity, trusting God, mercy. But there's got to be something going on in your heart for that. Because here's what can happen. Here's what, if it's a matter of law, so it's a matter of, I'm just trying to keep God happy, or I'm trying to impress others.
Yep.
So,
which was a huge issue in their day and in our day.
Right. Blowing a trumpet is one image. Even the Apostle Paul saying, though you give everything you have to the poor, you can still not have love. In other words, there can still be a thing. I'm trying to make a name. I'm trying to improve my brand.
Well, and in our culture, you can actually get your name on a building or a stadium.
Yes.
If you give generously. Right.
So it's what you want. I think tithing was this starter. Yeah. This to kind of teach you can trust God, to get into, like you said, it's a rhythm. And that highlights a value, and you start but what God wants to happen is a generous heart, full of mercy. Yeah, you've got that was the epiphany that I had this year in my own life, which was you finally get to the point where your right hand doesn't know what your left hand is doing. You're not even tracking your giving. And I'm not saying, I want to tell you this because I'm not trying to be better than anyone else, using Nate Bargatze's line. But I used to track giving like religiously on my spreadsheet. So I've got, a budget spreadsheet, and here's what we own and here's what we owe, and, net worth and all that kind of stuff. And I would have a separate sheet just on giving, because I always wanted to make sure I was giving. And I had a number in mind that I wanted to make sure we were giving every year. And I realized as I started doing 2023 taxes, and I'm doing 2024 taxes right now, because I'm going to be ahead of the curve this year, Raj.
I'm doing it as I go, but I'm not tracking giving anymore. And it's, in one sense, it's because I can't remember it. I know if I go, I mean, I think of moments where I just sense God saying, hey, I want you to do this thing, or here's an opportunity, and you take that opportunity. I was even like in the Sierras earlier this year in June, and I had like one of the girls on this trip had literally, she had rented a setup for me, which is about $1,200 worth of gear. The whole setup. I mean, great gear, great stuff. She'd been with me on 3 different trips. Loves hiking, lives in California. And the last day of the hike, I don't know. I just felt like I should just give all that to her. Just give her the whole thing. Now, in my mind, I'm going, that's about $1,200 worth of gear that I'm going to need to rent to other people. And I just said, hey, we'll call her Maggie. Maggie, I just want you to have that whole backpack. I mean, I know you love backpacking and you've been renting gear for me for the last 3 years, on trips. I want you to just have that and enjoy it. She's like, what? I'm like, no, seriously. But in that moment, I didn't feel a sense of loss. I felt a sense of joy. And there was a certain kind of freedom in that because I didn't have to put that on a plane and fly it back now.
That was...
But though, I realized,
it's back to you.
Well, I used to track all that stuff. So I would put on a spreadsheet. I gave $1,200 and backpack it. And I think my heart's getting better in that sense. In that I'm not tracking it now. It's not, I need to make sure I'm giving this percentage. I just want to be a generous person. I want to be that person every time God nudges me, because it's almost always a nudge. It's never a voice from heaven, give now or I will smite you. It's not, it's just, here's an opportunity. Hey, hey, Bruce, I want to do something for someone. Really? Yeah, and I want you to join me in it. And that was the story we talked about last week that was so good. The rich young ruler comes to Jesus.
Yeah.
Falls down, worships a good teacher. Tell me what I need to do to inherit eternal life. Of course, Jesus then poses the question back to him. Look, who's good? Who's really good? Isn't only God good? Are you saying that you believe me to be God? And he's worshiping. He's in this. Mm-hmm. What do I need to inherit the kingdom of heaven? He said, well, the law. You keep the laws. He said, oh yeah, I'm keeping the law. I've kept those since child. I mean, since I was a child, because the law was right. But it's interesting. The rich young ruler, after hearing the teaching of Jesus, probably multiple times, is like, I feel like I'm missing something still. And here's what now it just made me think. If what he said is true, he's a tither. He's a tither. Absolutely. Right. He's a tither. And he's wealthy. So tithing hadn't hurt him. Yep. Tithing hasn't shut down the wealth factory. But he has this sense, as he listens to Jesus, I feel like I'm still missing something. Because Jesus would say, repent and believe the good news. Repent, the kingdom of heaven is at hand. And they're like, what are we repenting from? We're keeping the law. I mean, what's going on? So Jesus looks at him and loves him. Well, I think that one of the 2 gospels says it that way. I can just imagine Jesus, I love this guy. Yeah, I love this guy. Tell you one thing you like. And then I'm thinking the rich young ruler is going, oh, this is better than I thought. I mean, there's just one thing. I only have to do one thing. Yep, just one thing. All right, tell me the one thing. All right, here you go. I want you to take all of your possessions. I want you to sell them. And then I want you to give them to poor people. All the proceeds. So sort of two things. Yeah. It's one big thing, Raj. Okay, let's not get, nitpicky here. That sounded very pharisaical.
Well, maybe 3 things, because then he says, follow me, right?
Okay, so there was 3 things he liked. It's like the Trinity. It's 3 in 1. 3 things you like. Number 1, let's go through this point by point.
3 is a real loose term.
It is.
With God.
3 could be 1. I want you to sell everything that you have. I want you to give it to the poor, and then come follow me. And it was beautiful because he didn't say, because there's a lot of people that wanted to follow Jesus, right then and there. But Jesus was like, no, there's something you're going to have to do before you can even follow me. And it was similar to what he told another person that said, Lord, I will follow you anywhere you go. And he said, birds of the air have nests and foxes have holes, but the Son of Man has no place to lay his head. In other words, if you're going to run with me, there is no promise of shelter. Now, food and clothing, got you on that one. Jesus would talk about that all the time. But there's no. So the rich young ruler walks away sad. So he comes worshiping. He comes with a sense of expectation. Jesus says, there's only one thing you lack. I think he's excited at this point. Right. Only one more thing to do. Been keeping the law. Sell everything you have and give it to the poor. Then come follow me. and he laid the left sad. And that's when Jesus said, how hard it is for the rich to enter the kingdom of heaven. It is easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than it is for a rich man to enter the kingdom of heaven. The disciples said, who then can be saved, Lord? And he said, with man, this is impossible, but with God, all things are possible. The kind of generosity that God wants to grow in our heart is a God thing. It's something only God can do. Because humanly, I think Jesus was arguing, the more wealthy you are, the harder it is to let go.
Yep.
And by the way, we live in a super wealthy nation.
Oh, yeah.
Most of us, including two of us sitting here, I think we would be in the top 2% of world wealth.
Absolutely. We would be.
And it's funny, I have to say this carefully, but we don't see ourselves as wealthy because we're comparing it to other people that we're like, no, that's wealthy. I'm like, no, we're wealthy.
And so it really is no shock. Even if we talk about it, sometimes it's easier to kind of look at where Christianity is declining, and just we've tossed God out, or we're just not, and not seeing how often there's a pattern. If you look at Europe and Canada, and a lot of the Western world, a lot of the wealthy Western world, they don't really need God. There's not really and it's like the words of Jesus just being replayed all down through history. You've got the gospel exploding in China.
Yeah.
Among the persecuted and the marginalized. And you got the gospel exploding in Africa, where poverty is rampant. And so it's no shocker. It's this sobering reality. Even if you look at things about the narrow way and the broad way, the compelling way, we want the gospel to be about, if the gospel is costing us something, the ones that aren't entering tend to be the wealthy. So this idea,
and by the way, why would anyone ever name their street Broadway? There's a Broadway in every city, and I'm just like that. Do you not read Jesus? It's not a good road. Don't be on that road.
It's not. And it's on our wealthiest streets.
It is. The Broadway, literally. I'm like, oof.
So it's just, if I look at why I would say the church is declining in America, we might point to it's prayer got out of schools, or political reasons, or without perhaps seeing that money is turning the heart, not just of the unbelieving part of it, but money is still influencing the heart of the church.
Yeah.
And Jesus put it out there. The battle is always going to be money and God.
Right.
Money and what it represents. It could be power.
Right. And I always thought that was fascinating when Jesus ever made a juxtaposition between it's either God or this. It wasn't God or sex.
Yep.
Which the church
pretty
pretty much says it's either God or sexual sin. That's the dividing point. He didn't say it's God or the devil, which would be another one I would say that makes sense. No, he said it's either God or money.
Well, think about this. The love of money is the root of every kind of evil.
Think about that.
We would think again,
we would have
the church, the love of sex.
Right. Or there'd be a lot of other roots.
Right. There'd be a lot of.
That's a root that we don't even talk about in church.
No.
Unless we do a sermon on tithing.
Right.
We're going to go with that root today. We'll do some rooting.
But unfortunately, even there, messages on tithing are rarely getting at the root of. We need more the messages of actually God wants it all. That's the disturbing. And by the way, in a wealthy country, tithing isn't even that.
And Roger, that's
terribly scary.
That's where I am concluding my talk this week. Because you just said it. That's it. It's an all or nothing prospect. Here's the thing. In one sense, we think I'm glad Jesus never came to me and said, "Hey, give everything away." And
well, he did.
But he did. He said, if you're going to come to the kingdom of heaven, it's like one king who has 20,000 men going up against another king that has 40,000 men. And he said, will not the king with 20,000 men go, I'm not sure I can take them. we're radically outnumbered. Will that person not raise the white flag, send a delegation, and ask for, and I love the way Jesus said it, ask for terms of peace, which is unconditional surrender, 100%. All of this, everything I have is yours, God. And guess what happens when you do that? You don't feel a sense of loss. You feel a sense of peace. It's terms of peace. And so what Jesus asked the rich young ruler to do, I shouldn't say asked. What he commanded the rich young ruler to do is the same thing he commands each of us to do. Give it all to me.
And then it's surrender it all to me, then I'll decide where
you're going to allot it.
Yeah,
which was the second part of the 3-part command.
Right.
Give it to the poor. The first thing was sell it all off, but the second was give it to the poor, which tells you about God's heart for where we should be giving.
Yep. No, it's fascinating. If you think about that, people that encounter Jesus. So if I look at the rich young ruler walked away, Zacchaeus did not.
Yeah.
Zacchaeus,
oh my goodness,
had the exact opposite. So Jesus had a conversation we're not privy to. We get to see Jesus. Zacchaeus comes out of the conversation.
Yes.
So it gives us an idea.
He is so surrendered.
But he seems very happy.
Yeah.
Very excited. Very free.
Very free. He's come to terms of peace.
And what were his terms?
He said, I'm going to give half of everything I own to the poor.
Okay, and so there's a starter. So one part of that, half my net worth, I'm just going to go to the poor, but he's not finished.
And Zacchaeus was the chief tax collector, so he made a crap ton of money.
A lot of money.
Face it. He said, and with the rest of it, if there's anyone that I've cheated, that I've taken more than I should, I'm going to pay 4 times, which is what the law demanded, pay 4 times the amount back, which I think was probably the second half of his net worth. Because they have ledgers. I can see Zacchaeus with joy, with a smile, going, overcharge this person $1,000. We're going to give him $4,000.
Yep.
Beautiful. He's free. He's following Jesus. And then, of course, Jesus, because everyone thought that he was no longer a Jew because he was collecting taxes from Rome. He said, this man is truly a son of Abraham, which I think pissed people off at a level that we cannot imagine. But Jesus was so happy for him.
I think it ticked off all the disciples except maybe Matthew.
Matthew felt a little comfort and a little peace himself right there. He was like, me too. I'm a son of Abraham.
But when I look then at the people that Jesus encountered, he asked them to surrender everything.
Yep.
But then he didn't. But then it was different. So for some, like some of the disciples, gave up the family business.
Yeah.
So they walked away from their family business.
I mean, imagine that.
But not everybody.
But imagine having that conversation with your wife. You quit your job today? No, I quit my career. I mean, it's not like I'm changing fishing companies.
Right. You talk about kind of giving your whole net worth and what that's going to.
But you're going to inherit your father's fishing business, James and John.
But he didn't ask Mary and Martha and Lazarus to do that. He did. So it's the reality. We put everything on the table.
Yeah.
Jesus decides, here's what I want to use this for. Here's what I want to use. This is, and in the process, when in the giving away, in the letting him take we're making a trade-off, and it's the best trade-off we'll ever make. The best trade-off in the world is to give him everything, including your life.
Yeah.
He could ask you for your life.
Yep.
John the Baptizer. I mean, you could look there.
Followers of Jesus throughout history.
Right. All that,
including today, current.
But you look at the people who found that joyfully. Stephen.
So funny you said, because I was just thinking of Stephen in a pit, rocks being thrown on him. Father, don't hold this to their charge.
Right.
He's free.
He's free.
It's wonderful.
He made the trade.
He didn't say, God, make sure they get theirs. See what they're doing to me. He got it.
And this is the
thing. The way of Christ frees us.
And this is where giving is a small piece of that. This is where money is a huge piece. In other words, money can be the biggest. You think about this, how tragic it is that money and stuff can literally be the reason why someone says, I'll pass on Jesus.
Yeah.
I don't really need that. This stuff I have, I'm gonna keep that. And this is where Jesus said, you're trading your soul. This is an awful. Now think about it. Please think about it. This is a terrible decision you're making here.
Jesus would say things like, what does it profit a man if he gains the whole world?
The whole world.
Which we would think, that seems good.
Right.
But loses his soul. Interesting. I was listening to Andy Stanley last week, and he talked about what he believes is that the final temptation of Jesus is the final temptation that we face in the United States of America, which is, however Satan does it, he says he shows him all the kingdoms of this world and all the wealth and splendor and power. It says, all of this I will give you if you will just worship me. And of course, Jesus says, absolutely not. He said, but I think Christians are trading the kingdom of heaven for the kingdom of this world to win an election, to get their party's agenda forward. And he said, we've got to get back to the way of Christ. We've got to get back to the kingdom of heaven. That's our only priority.
Because in essence, we're selling the soul of the gospel. We're selling our soul.
That's terribly convicting.
Well, this is what we are. This is actually the heart of what the gospel is about.
Yep.
It's a terrible trade-off.
Everything about the gospel is giving up power. It's not gaining power.
No, Tom Holland, a historian, not a Christian, but I listened to his talk about. He said so. He tracks history, all Islam, Christianity, whatever. So the staggering thing about Christianity, he said, is the enduring image of Christianity is the cross. He said the cross was about losing. And here's what I was reflecting on this very thing earlier today. The cross is about sacrifice. It's about surrender. It's not about taking life. It's about losing your life.
It's about death.
It's about death. It's about.
In other words, you can't see a cross and not think about death.
No, that's right. It was a sign of losing. You lost to Rome. You were but this is the power of the gospel. The power of the gospel is its weakness, is its foolishness, so we are losing our soul if we're, that whole sacrifice, serving, coercing, the sacrifice, we'd rather kind of go with power, and we're still drawn to looking smart and powerful. And we're selling the soul of the gospel. This is the trade-off that I do think is getting lost, even in our politics, is the subtle belief that somehow politics are about power. The gospel is not about power.
No, and before the 2016 election, I remember Christianity Today did an anonymous survey of Christians, voting Christians, and they said, what is your number one concern in this year's election? And it wasn't a border wall. It wasn't immigration. It wasn't foreign policy. It wasn't helping the poor in our community. It wasn't education. It was the economy. Now, that's that. We're back to this: God or the economy. But you can't serve both.
Here's and that's still pervasive today. Even if I look at Facebook
I don't
posts,
think it's changed from 2016.
Because now so many people are, again, I'm seeing, and I'm in the Christian community, there's an awful lot of this, that the big marker, I think I saw one Facebook post that was about inflation and the border wall. That's the singular. Now, these are the singular, inflation / economy may be, once again, the driver, where some of the other things, possibly abortion, other things are the window dressing, but they're not the actual.
Roger, abortion didn't hit the top of the list in 2016 for Christians.
Yep.
Supreme Court nominee did not hit the top of the list in 2016. It was money, the economy. And I want to say this. I want to both of us say this carefully. I don't think that Roger and I are like free, like from like struggling with money. I mean, there's always. It's like we talk about every year. You know, April 15th, you're doing your taxes, and there's a part of you that wants to go. Do I really need to claim this? I mean, come on. This is very much off the books. I think this, and I'm like, nope. We need to. Because Jesus said, if you're faithful in little things, you can be entrusted with much. But if you're not faithful in little things, well, you're gonna be unfaithful in big things too. And we just don't think that's true. But it is.
Yes. We still fill the poll.
We covered a lot in a 40-minute podcast.
That was as rambly as we have ever been.
That was 2 weeks of podcasts in one, because last week's podcast was the silent podcast.
We were so happy we had sound. We've got to get it all in today.
We got
to get everything we've ever thought about in today.
I started talking fast. By the way, I'll finish with this. I'm obsessed with this song I heard this morning for the first time. It's by 9 Days, and it's called Absolutely. You got to listen to it. It's very fun.
You just heard it today?
Just heard it today, first time. I played it 4 times in the car. Well, 5 if you count when I drove up.
Bruce came in today enamored with this song. I thought he'd been listening to it for a few weeks.
No!
Just this morning.
No, I hear certain songs and I'm like, you hear certain songs, you're like, I just like that song. It's just fun.
In the comment section, put a fun song that we need to listen to as well.
That's good. And we said if you stay till the end, we'll give you the big reveal. The big reveal is this. Roger and I don't know yet whether we're going to do it, but I've encouraged Roger and I to do more podcasts, like 3 a week. I think that'd be so cool. More pastards, more often. I think that's what people want, Roger.
In the comment section, say yay or nay. More of the pastards or shut her down.
Let me do the other thing you're supposed to do.
What are we supposed to do?
And if you like today's podcast, please subscribe and hit a like on a button.
You see where that like button? I don't even know.
I think it's
does
down there.
YouTube actually have a like button?
It might be a thumbs up.
What is
button.
it now? Okay.
It's two enthusiastic thumbs up. Love you guys. See you next week. Probably.
Don't know if you'll hear us, but
we're gonna be there. Woo!